Another dim lit live for y'all. What's up? Um, Thank you for supporting. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. What's going on, Alicia? How you doing? Just waiting for people to pop up in here. We'll see if we get any folks. I know it's Thanksgiving weekend and people might not be trying to step away from the TVs and the family right now, but it'll probably just be a quick live, quick hour. Go through some things. If you got any questions or if you want to join, let me know. So, man, it's tough. It's always like you just got to get rolling. It's kind of it. Once you get rolling, then I can kind of start touching on stuff, and I think people, um, they can kind of see the oneness in what we're all going through when I just start talking about my daily events, and they can kind of relate to it. So, it's all about, I guess, just getting started, and then we can wrap this thing up. Um, I really want to talk about like sneak teaching, though. I feel like I've been one of the worst, offenders of, as far as sneak teaching is concerned. I think sneak teaching is one of the worst things that happens when you feel like you know something or when you start learning, I guess. So I think that it's a crazy trap to, well, for one, I guess, you're getting involved with people before you really are really fully intimate with yourself, to where it's almost like they're like the perfect roadblock. You're almost like constructing like the perfect enemy in a lot of respects. I think that every time I've ever gotten into a relationship with somebody, a lot of times it's like it's not really attraction, it's just distraction. And I failed to recognize the difference. So I would just be succumbing to distraction, and then I would use them as like a means to like blame for my the stunting of my growth. So I feel like I feel like you definitely have to teach something to actually, fully learn it, because you have to learn how to teach, and because you're teaching yourself ultimately. So the better you are at teaching others, the better you become at teaching yourself, and the more concise and more accurate you can be, the better off you are. But I just feel like whenever I would be in a relationship, that I would inevitably have contradictions to myself kind of built into the process or into the situation, because I wasn't fully committed to myself. I wasn't fully intimate with myself, fully honest with myself. So I would always be teaching someone and like dumping a bunch of stuff on them. And then the fact that they couldn't get it, because I want them to process it at the rate that I'm processing it based on where I'm at. And when they didn't get something, then I'd totally disregard whatever it is that they might have had to teach and help me unlearn with. And I feel like I created like the perfect enemy. It was somebody that could perfectly detract from what I was doing or what I was learning, because I taught them, like I'd be in a relationship with someone and I'd be telling them about diet or telling them about certain things. And then there's this fear in my life of, I guess, being alone and just being fully myself and like accepting whatever comes with that. That will create the contradictions. So now I'm succumbing to whatever it is, man. Whether I'll be succumbing to bad food combinations or succumbing to smoking or drinking or different things I was doing in my life at different times when I'll be in relationships, because I would look at it like I needed the fog kind of to be in a relationship, and I used them as like like as a something to blame as to why I was being the way I was being. But at the same time, I'm teaching them different things. Like a lot of this shit is true. A lot of what I'm teaching them is true, but it's all like, well, not all, but a lot of it is conceptual. Like certain things I'm embodying, certain actions I'm taking throughout the day are reflecting my awareness, and what I've learned and unlearned. But there'll be these voids because I'm expecting stuff. I'm comparing I'm comparing the woman that I'm with to the chick in my head, the imaginary chick in my head that don't exist. So, and I feel like if somebody doesn't meet up to those standards, then there must be something wrong with me. And then I create that problem even more. It's like it expands the problem even more. And even if that person does kind of meet like a certain standard that I made up conceptually, I'll probably just move the goal line anyway. So much of it was just me not being content with being myself. So then I would want to distract through other people. And it's like I'm bringing a whole nother person into my life to masturbate my mental and like vex my spirit through them so that I could feel like some exaltation, some sort of like false exaltation. And the exaltation is not for you, it's really for others to do, you know what I mean? It's not really for, it is through you, through your commitment to yourself and your loyalty to the presence. But I feel like if you're going through something with someone where you're teaching them different things as far as about how to eat or what to, as far as how to recognize certain signals, like that's a lot of it is like, yeah, I mean certain things I did have down pat, and I didn't have certain voids were not there in me, and they were there in other people, and it's almost like they become like a pet, and I kind of treat myself like a pet. I kind of treat something that can't really advance beyond a certain state because of one reason or another, like some type of cage that I've given myself that I feel like I'm scared to go out of. And so I feel like I would get into, it's like the more intelligent they were, the more difficult it would be. As much as you like, and then I feel like when I was in separation, I would want like a lot of conversation, a lot of like intellectual stimulation. The more I was separated from myself, I felt like I needed to talk to other people to really hear myself at all anyway. And so through that, I don't know, that's all. I just became overstimulated. It's just an overstimulating relationship. It's not real. It's not really. It's not really like a shared presence. There's like, and that's why I was saying the other day, like it's intention is the opposite of presence. Like when you say like you coming into shit with this human or sensual perspective of like what should be or how things should be, how things should taste, how things should look, how they should feel. That's all like your sensual scope and like a human expectation. And like carrying that is the opposite of presence because all of that is like a byproduct of the presence. Like you're present, so then thoughts are the echo of the presence, like sensuality and senses, smells and visuals and all of that. That's all like a byproduct of awareness. And it's just like the focus on the byproduct would just keep me in a never ending cycle of like just lack because there's no way to, it's kind of like quantum physics and in general too, is like where you can't, like if you see a thing and you try to like as far as like subatomic phenomena, if you're like observing it, if you try to measure it or like measure its speed or whatever, in the process of doing that, it's not in the place where it was. Like it's never in the where you see it is not where it's at because it's already moving from that spot. So it's again, it's kind of like moving the goalposts with people. You know, like I'm expecting certain things from people, and I'm trying to pin down eternity and like chip away at it so that I can grasp it. And I'm trying to teach something to someone that I haven't really fully embodied myself, and I let them in way too much. And if they're really smart, then they're just going to be better at arguing with me. Then I just spend more time arguing with them or more time just competing and like having that againstness because like my will has become externalized. Like, you know what I mean? The world feels, everything feels like it's against me because I'm against my own will. I'm against my own nature. And it's like I'm sneak teaching. It's a contrived teaching. I'm not really trying to. It's like such a Machiavellian way to teach instead of like very simple ways of just teaching and accepting where the student's at as far as like you being a student and you teaching yourself, and then whoever comes to observe that, like you, the more that I would contrive and try to get people to like follow a lesson plan, like I'm ultimately contradicting myself because I'm not even embodying the originator or the creator, or whatever. Like if I'm going into puppeteer mode or Machiavellianism where I'm trying to get them to make a decision that they think that they made, because it's like that was it. Like it was kind of just like I guess how the so-called elite operate, where it's like I need you to think that this thought came from you, so that like you can consent to it, and I can be alleviated of karma or whatever you want to call it. So the more that I would try to contrive and get people to learn through like a forced effortful means, the less that I was actually being, just being, like less I was being the originator within. So I was contradicting myself. So it was automatically going to create a separation within myself and with them because I'm not really like if I was going to be like the originator, then I'd be like I'm not going to make you learn. I'm not going to make you realize yourself. You have will to do this or not do this. And if I get in the way of that, then I'm tampering and I'm not, there's really no trust anyway. So like ultimately like the creator is just like a massive trust. You know what I mean? Like that, like the Tao Te Ching says, like um the Tao is the Tao is the wise man's treasure and the foolish man's refuge. You know, it's like a massive trust that you can access, you know, through following, you know, just following the Tao. And so like when I get like when you're going through contrivance, there's no trust. So there's no likeness of the creator. So then there's no oneness there. So then there's you can easily poke holes in whatever I'm trying to do to teach or lead because I'm not really embodying it. Now it's all forced, effortful. It's not really reflecting the pattern of creation. It's all contrivance. It's all me trying to teach a person that maybe don't want to learn or that isn't supposed to be learning this at this time, and I'm trying to force something on them because it's like at some level I guess I want them to learn so they could teach me, or I feel like if I teach them then I can like bypass me having to learn the shit. it's it's the craziest shit, you know what I mean? Like it really takes you from the present moment to contrive anything. And like and I think the biggest fear, because I was talking to this young guy about it the other day, man. He called me for a consultation, and you know he just didn't want to be alone. So much of it is that, I mean, it's everybody, they just don't, you know, people just don't want to be alone. And he was talking about like I didn't go home for the holiday because I didn't want to eat this food and I wanted to stay on this path or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no doubt, I get it, you know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, I get I get why people go on hiatuses and step away from things and everything, and they need their space to like, you know, calibrate and regroup or whatever. But at the same time, it's like if you're just true, then you don't have to shy away from anything, and you can go into all of that shit is like, it's not against you, it's all for you. You know, you're not looking at these as quarrels anymore. You're looking at it like, this is something that's like supporting my process and testing my patience and showing me where my temperament really is and seeing how authentic my virtue really is. You know, because he's just like, man, how do I, have a better diet? How do I do, 'cause I want to have a better diet. I don't want to slack. I constantly slip and slack and everything or whatever. And I'm just like, yo, it's all about, your virtue. You have to look at it like, look, man, I learned this. People I have the virtue to say, like, I'll leave the chips on the floor. I'll do it. I'll leave the best example I can, and they'll learn when they're supposed to. If they don't, it's not like it's my job to teach them in that respect. Like, I got to do my work and then step back from there. And I think that a lot of times I get why people step away and don't go to family gatherings or friendly gatherings or whatever because they don't want to indulge, but I don't that shouldn't really determine what you're doing, and I don't feel, and I just, it's really a nice challenge. Eventually it's not even a challenge. Eventually it just becomes like just life. It's not really like anything's trying to be against you, and it's like kind of like where there's a will, there's a way. Like there's always that option. It's not. It's kind of like a non-option thing. It's really like this is the only way that you could do this. Like I couldn't do Thanksgiving like people do Thanksgiving. It's not even an option for me to eat what they eat. Like that's not. It's not even in my mind. Like this is what I'm gonna do. Like, but as far as like where I can meet in the middle, like where the rubber meets the road, where I actually can have a common ground of like processing matter through my GI with others, so that we can experience this together. It's gonna be what, salad or soup or something, or what I mean, like something that I'll be able to do to where I can still connect with people at some level or whatever, and get that actual human connection, that actual, nourish that part of me, and get that energy and that, because it's like an atomic bomb. It's like hydrogen fusion when people connect, and so like if you got real connections, like then it doesn't matter. Like as far as the food is all secondary to it. Like you have the real connection and y'all just doing something together, whether you eating or whatever, whatever it is. And so you're just changing the ingredients and still experiencing the connection. But and then you don't really have to lead a horse to water. You know what I mean? You just drink your own water. It doesn't. That's not. You can't hide. You can't make somebody breathe. You can't make them. You just can't make them breathe. Honestly, I think that's like the basis of it. Like, um, the more that you would do something like that, the more atrophy you would create, and then because then the more power that you have over the other person, the less power you have over yourself, and then you just be exhausted. And so, I don't know. I just think that like a lot of this shit, I feel like people get caught up in this process of awareness. Um, is just like sneak teaching, like trying to teach people, like the the ends never justify the means. It's all like it's all about the means. It's all about, that's why intention is the pathway to hell. The pathway to hell is lined with good intention, because intention is all focused, is all ending oriented, instead of like, yo, this is an eternal walk, or whatever you want to call it. Like it's an eternal process. This is not something that I get to an end and I'm just like, yo, I made it, yo, I'm breatharian, or I made it, yo, I'm fucking Super Saiyan, or whatever they, people have in their mind. Like that's all conceptual. So that's all gonna get in the way of reality. That is kind of like a virtual reality being superimposed, you know what I mean? Instead of actual virtual or virtue, which is reality, like, which is your real nature. But people be afraid to experience that for one reason or another, whether they overshared at some point, or they undershared at some point, and then the ramifications of that, they just don't want to experience that again, and then now they don't really get to experience themselves, because like accurate sharing is pretty much how, like volume control. That's all it really is volume control. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of times where I overshared or undershared, and then it just creates a whole loop. You overshare, you regret it, and then you like totally withdraw, and then that inevitably makes like some part of your being a traitor to the other parts of your being. So then that creates a breakaway or like a separation that leads to some sort of um, self-deprecation, by like chemically, and then you overshare again, and then you regret it again, and then you withdraw, and then you overshare again, and then it's the same thing with like undersharing, like whether you just meet somebody at the bus stop or at the gym or something, and you could have said more, or you could have done more, whatever it is. Like now, it's the same. It's like the same cycle, really. It's just like a loop, a different side of the loop. Because then you undershare at some point, then you feel like you have to compensate at another point, and then the volume control is just off. And I just feel like whenever I be in relationships, my volume control would just be off. So that's why I feel like sex ruins so much, because I have sex with them, and then the volume control be just ruined. Because then now like we so open, it's like the speakers everything's just turned all the way up, because you just opened the portal of creation so jaggedly, so sharply, that like now your body's more relaxed probably than it should be with this person, and you've like merged with the person casually in a way that's like um it's got the gravity of death. It's got the attachment level of death. Attachment is gravity. So like having sex with someone is kind of like the same as like somebody dying in your life, because your body is now going through a bond that is being formed through this you know this opening. You know what I mean? Like you tying a knot, and some you're merging at some level, merging breath, really. So like I'll have sex with them, and then now they're like stunned, my body's stunned, and now I'm just like pouring into them, and then it's just it's an inevitable crash, because I can't keep that up. Since it wasn't done gently. It wasn't like gradually, like a gradual initiation of creation. Now I'm just like dumping myself on them, and they're open, and then one way or another, I'm getting dumped whatever they got, whether it's subconsciously seeping into my system, or they're actively just dumping information and their experiences into my system. And I just feel like it just would be volume control. I'm losing all the volume control at that point. Now I'm just oversharing, and then it reaches a point where I just want to. I'm like, I'm hoarded now. I have to hoard myself. Now I don't want to share nothing, and then it's just a crazy cycle. And so it's like appropriation is key. You know what I mean? Like you definitely want to keep it as impersonal as possible until like absolutely necessary, so that shit kind of you don't have to like separate from life to go do it. You know what I mean? Like it's some like you can kind of see when you start to separate from life to go do things. You know what I mean? Like on like a basic level, you gotta like kind of hide it. Like the families aren't cool with it. They, that your family wouldn't be cool with this person, or their family wouldn't be cool with you. Like that's kind of like basic a separation there, I guess. Societal separation, but like it's kind of like you have to go do it in the dark ultimately, because like and that's why people drink and smoke and have sex, or they eat and have sex, or they pass out and use sleep like a drug, and wake up and have sex, because their bodies are now like kind of synchronizing through this drug experience that or chemical experience that they're calling sleep. So then they wake up in an erotic state. and then now you're just having sex, like and doing something has a lot of gravity, that has a lot of attachment, the level of death, that level of somebody, because your creation is like the same door opening, and you creating a lot of attachment to the body. The bodies are going through that, and like undoing that is difficult. I mean, and I think especially for women, but dudes as well. You know what I mean? I think especially for women, but I think guys still, they have attachments they don't even really recognize. Especially guys that's been circumcised. I mean, you got like what? It's 2 billion Muslims, so let's say 1 billion men Muslims, and then you got 330 million Americans, so probably uh, half of the men, at least half of the men, like probably more than half the men. So you're saying like 150 million men in America, and a billion Muslims. So you're looking at like, you know, anywhere from like 1.2 upwards billion people that have been circumcised. And then what is it, like 13 million Jews in Israel? I think like 15 million Jews in America. All of them too. So like you gotta think about all of these people that's been circumcised. They don't acknowledge it. They don't acknowledge the attachments, the bonds, and the transference of energy. They're in. They're basically in a coma. But it's I think that the pain is why people try to bypass and try to go through the sneak teaching and contrivance and try to show people things and try to like be cautionary tales and like lead through like conceptual means. Like it's like a fat person telling you to go run, or a fat person telling you to go to eat less or something like. So I think a lot of people just never get it because the examples aren't there, and you know, and I just feel like sex itself is the door. I mean, it's a doorway to everything. It's kind of a doorway to destruction and creation, and that's why it ruins the volume control. And I feel like that's why people's thoughts, I feel like, probably get turned up to the volume of thoughts, because they're having sex with all these different people, and whatever thoughts they have unprocessed, and their own thoughts that have been unprocessed, and then you're just kind of like jacked into, kind of almost in a lot of respects, like whatever parasites the other person got, whatever they're carrying, that kind of goes into you too. And so now you don't really have a regulation over the thoughts, the flow of the thoughts, and thinking in English, it's hard to really realize what original thought really is like. So it's just so much traffic, the volume's just up. It's like having 10 radio stations all on at the same time and the volume's up, and you kind of don't know which one's like your signal. And that's why I feel like we're in the situations we're in today. But let me see. Yeah, I was talking to this dude, man, about this shit, man. Like he was like, he's talking about as far as like him and his relationship. Some chick that was, said some shit to him, and she, because he's like, yo, she was talking about how he don't ever eat and he don't ever drink and how it's weird and everything. And I'm like, man, yo, you knew what you signed up for. You trying to change a hippopotamus into a rhino or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, she is what she is. You know what I mean? And she is where she's at. And so, um, the more that you tamper with other people's process, the more that you just block your own process, man. If you're not in that state, like that's what I was saying about like the puppeteers of the world, like are the biggest puppets. They convince themselves they're not puppets. You know what I mean? Like plenty of people are not really in touch with their actual will. They don't even know the likeness. They don't even really know how to communicate with their will. They just know sensuality. You know what I mean? I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I'm cold. I'm hot. That's what they think. That's their will. You know what I mean? And that's not. That's most people though. And so like, if you're the bigger the puppeteer, the bigger the puppet. Like So you gotta think of it like the creator is control. There's nothing controlling the creator or the originator, what have you. So that's what control is, and you can align with control by sharing in the likeness of it. By through virtue, through actual authentic virtue, not like mechanical. Um, somebody tells you that you need to be nice or that you need to share, and then it's the virtue is really absent. You're not really taking in the likeness. God or the creator don't have to be told, like, what I mean, that to to grant will and to grant creation and to grant these virtues, because we're all sharing in like the likeness. And different people, I was talking to the dude about this shit. I was like, because he don't understand that people have experienced different states of logic. If you're doing heroin, like, it's logical for you to like skip certain things. You skip, you know uh whatever processes in your life. You might say, fuck it, I don't want to have a family, or fuck it, I don't want to have a girlfriend or boyfriend, I don't want to have a house or whatever, I don't want to afford myself these experiences. I'm skipping those because to me it's somehow logical to do this drug. And people are in different paradigms of logic. So it's like some people have actually shared in the divine logic, the actual logic, the actual reflection of divine logic. Some people have experienced that. They look like I'm not about to trade. These things don't match. Like, I'm not going to trade my integrity for this, that, and the third, because it's not worth it no matter how much I get from the world. I'm not going to trade my time for this, because they can actually see, like, look, yeah, I might get money or I might get this out of it, but then my focus will be all here, and then I'll just be tired, and then I'll have voids in my life, and I won't be cultivating practices to communicate with myself and to express the creator as best as possible. So now what? Now what does it really matter? Now I've spent all this time trying to gather things from the world, and all the things I'm gathering, I got to spend all of that shit now, or give it away or trade it, to give myself an opportunity to heal and realize and remember the shit that I knew from the beginning. There's plenty of people like that, man. They get the money and then they realize, like, wow, like, certain things is missing from my life now, and I'm gonna have to trade that shit back to get it. And then, people just won't. Some people just say, fuck it, I'd rather not. But different people experience like the logic. They know, they recognize, like, I don't want to eat this with these people right now, or I don't want to smoke this with these people right now, because ultimately I have to go home and lay my head down and actually dream, instead of having a night terror and not remember my dreams and waking up blank and not really having any guidance for the day or for the future or whatever, what have you. All of that, that's more important. I can see that that's more important. And then I can actually help people and give people insight if I actually follow or realize my dreams, and realize reality, really. So then, some people have never seen that logic. They never experienced that. They don't know. There's no contrast in their life. So they're in a spot where they're like, if I give this up, then I'm missing something. If I give smoking this blunt up and this some drinking or whatever this, or eating this food up, then I'm missing something right now. And they've never really experienced actual reality. They never experienced real dreaming. So they don't know what they're missing. So they're in a different, they can only they're only able to share, a certain they're only able to share to a certain capacity, and they're only able to really connect from a certain capacity. I'm not like discarding it, but you can't you can't force somebody's process. Like, at one point in time, I was just trying to have as many women as I could, you know? At one point in time, I just wanted to have the best weed that anyone could buy. And I filled my time and energy, or I filled up all the space with that, and I was really doing that because I hadn't experienced having it and experience and holding it, and then you be like, what is this? What is it? Where's this shit gonna take me? And so, as again, I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not being a puppet. And then it just shows itself in all my actions. It's like all my actions are measured. Everything is for something. It's all expectation. There's no real virtue in anything I'm doing. And I'm just I'm trying to convince myself that I have value through other people's what they value on a sensual level. Somebody that might have a logic like it's crazy, man. Like when you think about it, like where it's at. Cause like you could like wreck a chick, you know what I mean? Like certain chicks just be like a size queen or something and they just want a big dick or whatever. And I'd be like, wow, this is cool and everything. But at the same time, you don't even know what it would be like to be with someone that actually is just more sensitive. Somebody that has their foreskin, and maybe it would, not maybe, it would be more real. You would actually have more communication because sex is just communication. So like everything else is miscommunication or disconnection. And so then it's just rape. So like I feel like the logic is that's where their logic is. Their logic is like my sensual pleasures can, this has more weight. So that's the paradigm they're in. That's the gravity that they're experiencing, the attachment that they're experiencing. So that their dreams or lack thereof are what they are. And in their life, the way it unfolds is a result of that. And so I just feel like it's like it's a difficult thing, man, because you really gotta really be okay with like never talking to someone again or never seeing someone again or whatever. But at the same time, like, like one man in or one man leave. It's like it's kind of like anything, man. Like I was offered a job that I could have just worked and I would have made money. But I'm looking at like, the things that I would have had to do in order to counter the emotional dysfunction that would ensue from taking a job. I would be in the same place, but like slightly worse, probably, because then I'll be actually aging. I'll be living in even more expectation. Because it's like, I don't know if you've ever looked at it like, I could work this job and know that I'm gonna make X amount of money each month, or I could actually tap into real creativity, real origination, and I don't know how much I'm gonna make, but the whole process will be a challenge that keeps me present. So then my desires are quelled, and then I, you know, I, it's the same. But it's better because then you're more able to control your destiny instead of being a cog in someone else's nightmare. Like, so I can make say you can make 5,000 or 3,000 a month doing a job that you're gonna get a paycheck at a certain time, or you could be on some creative shit that's like abstract that no one really can see, and you don't really know it because you're creating the steps as you take them. So like you looking at it like, all right, as long as I maintain faith and respect the moment and pay attention, I don't know how much I'm gonna make, but it's gonna be what I need and more because I'm learning in this process too. I'm learning how to create, and that's why or to take the likeness of the creator. But that's why I think a lot of people didn't. They took the jab because 100 million motherfuckers that got forced under the OSHA shit to take it, or they would lose their job. I think they just never exercised that muscle of like creativity. They never went through the processes. So to like up and stop and try to go into a creative mode where you're like realizing your creative process now after you've just been a cog in a nightmare for so long, it's almost impossible. So yeah, you might make more money, but you're losing your ability to actually realize creation. So you're losing your ability to share, really. And like it's a funny thing, man, because you see people I feel like they get jobs that's like they feel cushy in the job, And so then they have a kid because they feel like, oh, I can pay for, just like the same way, like, yo, I got a dog, I can afford it, you know? And it's like, so, but you don't have the presence to really go through that process with the child. So you're not really giving them life. Like, you're giving them a pattern of death. And if they were to actually stay true to themselves, then they're going to seem like they're against you, and you're going to feel like your family's being torn apart, you know? And it's, I don't know, I feel like it happens all too often, is where, I think most of the people that have boomer parents, the parents, they like, why don't you just get a job or whatever and do this or da 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 da, a lot of them. And you're just like, yo, you're miserable. You don't even recognize it. You lie to yourself. You like puppeteer yourself to the point where you don't even recognize it and accept that you're miserable. And you want me to do it. You want me to be like that too. And there's no way that they're ever going to be able to really see this shit like you can. You really have to go through it. You really have to go through the process of like giving yourself a chance to create, taking every advantage of the moments that you have to build something that really reflects your true likeness. You know what I mean? And if it's just like the Dave Chappelle quote where he's talking to his dad, and his dad's like, well, you want to be a comic? A lot of people want to be comics, man. You might not make it. And he was like, well, how much do you make as a teacher, Dad? And he was like, I make like 40,000 a year. And he was like, if I can make 40,000 a year as a comic, then I feel like I made it because I'm doing what I want to do. You're not even doing what you want to do. So, it's like, I don't know, like so much of it is that way, where people have given up on that a long time ago. Like whatever would have made them present, they gave that up a long time ago. And like you cannot try to coerce them into seeing themselves. You just have to be yourself more and more and more. And it's like, and the shit it might not look like how you want it to look. It might not be glittery, but it'll be what it's supposed to be instead of what you think it should be. I mean, like, I think when you get what you think it should be, man, you know what I mean? Be careful what you wish for. From my experience, man, like it's just it's just the process. Like kind of can ask for the process, ask for the strength to stay steadfast on the process. Cause like it's the same test, but the answers get kind of like scrambled in some respects. Like, everything gets appropriated in different ways. So the questions come in different ways or challenges, what have you, throughout the process. Is like, cause you go vegan or you do whatever, you start doing breath work, you start fasting and you feel like, oh, okay, I got the formula. But then it's like, yo, you never been 30 though. You never been 40. You never been 50. And there's no way that somebody can teach you those ages. You have to go through that shit. And you'll never be at this place right here ever again. So like the formula for right now is being created in this moment. And like the formula for 27, that's 27. And now you have to adjust to where you stay present with right now so that you can acknowledge, and recognize yourself. But I think everybody's just looking for that formula that's just gonna work forever. And it's like the formula is just virtue. You know what I mean? That'll kill your appetite more than anything anyway. You know? And that's what breathwork really is. It's like, yo, I could do nothing right now. Could watch a movie, or I could actually just stay present and pay attention to my breathing and see what I get out of that. And you don't really know what's on the other side because you don't know what you don't know. But you go through that virtuous process of like, let's just see. Let's just see what I can bring out of me. Let's see what might be here that I'm not paying attention to. But people want to be like, nah, I know everything. I'm just watching Netflix. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Nah, I know everything, so I'm not gonna read no more. I was thinking about that shit the other day too. I was like, man, so many movies have aged awfully. And I look at movies now, they look awful. They're recreations of movies that already weren't good to begin with. But there's a lot of books that are still dope and will always be dope forever. And no matter what, I'd rather have them than Because I was looking at one of them mini libraries that people have in neighborhoods, especially wealthy neighborhoods. They got the little take a book, and somebody has some DVDs in there. I'm like, man, these books is trash and these DVDs is trash, but I would rather probably have one, a book over a DVD. That shit will aid, you know what I mean? Even if it's, yeah, I mean, ultimately, the Bible, the Tao Te Ching, certain shit like that, like, you can't really make a movie about it. You can make movies about parts of it, but it is life itself. You can't make a Tao Te Ching movie. You know what I mean? Imagine how that would look. It wouldn't look like nothing. The Tao don't look like nothing. So, like, the thing that you're trying to point to or grasp or realize is like so sublime that um I think it's easy for people to forget about it and kind of get lost in the density, get lost in like cravings and like wanting to be recognized. Instead of wanting to recognize yourself, you want to be recognized by people that don't know themselves. It's the wildest shit. But that's where we at though, man. You know what I mean? And I think if you see that, you can see the seams in the fabric as far as people's illusions. You can see. I mean, obviously, you can see all the BBLs. You can see the fake lips, the fillers in the face. You can see if you know how to look at it, you can see all the hair transplants. You can see all the fake teeth. You can see where people are at. Like, wow, people are really very poor, and they might have a lot of money, but they really poor. You know what I mean? And like, it's certain shit that like, there's no way you can avoid. It's your body's gonna express it. You know, and it is what it is, man. Your body is just reflecting your decisions ultimately. It's just your body is basically just all your memories. So it's an embodiment of memories. And that's what DNA is. So like, I don't know, I just feel like the more that you try to force the body to do shit, stimulate it to do shit, drinking coffee or forcing it to do shit, like, and I think that sometimes you could drink coffee, like if it's like 3 times a year or something. You know what I mean? Maybe you could get away with that and appropriate it and have like a little Turkish cup, one of them little shots or something like that. I think when it's like that, then you actually experience it. Otherwise, you don't really experience it. Same thing with like smoking or drinking or sex. It's like people not really experiencing it because they do it so much or they've done it wrong so many times that it's really kind of just a repetitive trauma that hasn't ended. Because the attachment to the trauma is like almost like a Stockholm syndrome of like self rape, you know, where it's like how to get the energy out of yourself or out of your body, and you know how to create the separation, whether it be through wine or fucking certain music or aphrodisiacs, or certain lighting, certain complexions, and different features in the other person. You know what you got to do? Like, this is what I got to do to basically create a weapon against myself to divulge energy out of myself. And then that's what the people's approach to sex is, their approach to life. So that's what they're always trying to do, that with everything. The way they have sex is the way they're doing everything. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to bust nuts, then you're definitely living in intention, not dwelling in the moment, because it's not about the ends, it's about the process. Sex itself is creation of a baby or a body, whatever, what have you. So sex can start with um sex really kind of starts with your whole formulation of like what you find um a motherly or fatherly quality. Then you have the sex, you go through the process of ovulation and ejaculation, and then the whole 9 months of having a baby, gestation period, that is all sex. Everything else is masturbation. The whole thing, that's like the beginning process is the orgasm, ejaculation, and then the reception of the seed to the um the arrival of the child, so, or the body, what have you. And so that whole thing is sex. You know what I mean? I think people, so people don't, if you people are just trying to have sex just to like forget about the moment, or to stimulate their senses, then that's how they do everything. There's nothing else that they do that's, it's all like that. So you look at the way people, their relationship to sex is, and you know their relationship with everything. How much they coerce themselves, how much they puppet themselves, how much they lie to them, how much they believe that they're not a puppet, and how much separation that they have, with themselves. Because the more that that there's perversion there in the sexual process, the more that you know, the more that you have basically a rogue entity that's against the will of the creator. The body has become separate from, it's gone rogue and like separated itself from the will, the universal will. So now life is against it. And sometimes when life is against it, then you get rewards from destruction. And you think it's a reward. Well, I guess it is ultimately a reward for you if you are in the process, if you just like to destroy yourself and others. So, yeah, man. So we're in this Mercury retrograde right now, right? Mercury and Sag. Um, what is Venus in? I think Venus ends something December 7th. Um, Venus in Aquarius, I think December 6th. It's in Capricorn right now, I think. And then Saturn's in Aries, I think, until May. So, I don't know. It's funny. It's a funny time, man. We got a new moon in Sag. We'll be having the event out here on the 7th. Maybe a first quarter moon. So, and it's Mercury retrograde. I think in some respects, Mercury retrogrades have been cool because especially with meeting people, Sag might be cool because then you meet people kind of like from past lives or future life, whatever you want to say, parallel lives, and I think it can be cool. But the moon will be going into Pisces the night of the event, I believe. So it'll be a cool time to get into the breath work and to the entheogens. So yeah, man. I guess that's it, man. Cause it's like I was posting the other day, man. It's like if you're in it for if you're in it, if you're focused on intentions and what your human intent is, instead of just being present, then it's you're just looking for a profit. You're looking to gain more than you've given. So then now it's like you're trying to beat physics, trying to beat your own nature. And again, that's just not having a communication system with the body. You're missing signals because the body is an expression of law, like the same way that the blood sinks to the lower part of the lungs because the blood is more dense. So it sinks, or whatever you want to call gravity or whatever. It sinks to the lower part of the lungs so that you want to breathe from your diaphragm so that you can have a better pump. Because the air pumps the heart, not the other way around. The air, the heart doesn't make the lungs go. The breathing makes the heart go. The plasma is what makes the heart go. So like, just like fire clings, water sinks, all of that, like all that's all law. And the body is an expression of law. And so if you know the law and you know the body, you know biochemistry, you know how to communicate with it, you enhance yourself with more languages, the language of music, the language of chemistry, Arabic or Hebrew, any of these ways to communicate with these different faculties of yourself, then now you won't miss those signals. But if you are trying to get more than what you gave, then you're you're trying to beat physics, so you're trying to beat yourself. So there's no winning in beating yourself. And so, you're gonna be in a perpetual loop. And that's how you breach yourself ultimately, and that's why surgery is crazy and pharmaceuticals are crazy, because you're breaching yourself. You're breaching your own will. When you do certain things, you're breaching your own will. The more that you do that, the more you become against yourself, the more you get locked out of your own body. You lose access to yourself and your own likeness, and you just become more and more rogue, and you become like a beggar. You're looking for things inside of you. You're looking for things outside of you that are inside of you. And you become more and more cut off, more and more blind, more and more deaf. And yeah, that's where most of the world, I feel like, is, where they want to get more than they gave instead of focusing on making better trades. Trades that, say somebody you trade, you no longer eat meat no more, so you trade your chicken for some mangoes. Then you no longer eat mangoes no more, whatever, and then you trade your mangoes for a green juice or some coconut water. And then everybody's getting a trade that they want, though, that brings them to a different state of not needing, a state of needing less and less. Because ultimately, you know, the less you need, the more in the likeness of the creator you're in. The more needy you are, the more dependent you are. The more that you can give, the more that you have. And the more that you are in the likeness of the creator. And so, yeah. December 7th, man. Come out if you're on the West Coast. Be careful out there, man. It's Mercury retrograde. I know a lot of you that's traveling from other states and flying and stuff. Double check your plans and dates and things. And stay communicating with me. And should be a good time, man. I know some people probably not gonna make it, and some people are gonna show up that I didn't think were gonna show up, just because Mercury retrograde is a funny thing. Some people gonna be last minute, like, I'm gonna make it. Some people gonna flake at the last minute. So it's funny, man, when you organize stuff, you kind of see. You can kind of see what the real will of people is, like when they're trying to do something that doesn't really match with what the window of opportunities are for them at that point in their life. But they're trying to do it, and they're going against the grain and going against pretty much the will of the universe at that point, because they become separated from their own will. Yeah. Protect your gut for sure, man. I'm just looking at these comments and questions now. Yeah, man. How many of y'all like that coconut cult though? That shit is crack though, bro. I haven't done it with the sea moss. And I've heard people that's like the trend, right? Doing it with the sea moss. And that's how shit should be though. Shit that's trendy now is like, wow, man, like, I've been doing this shit like this, and I'm glad people are doing it. Instead of telling people like, y'all been doing this. I'm glad more people are doing it so I can have more access if I so choose to indulge. So, how do you know if you met or meet someone from a past life? Man, it just you can see you can see that you have more to unpack. I forgot what's the shit in India. I don't know if it's Hinduism or whatever, where they say like everybody you meet you met before or whatever, and like just bumping into somebody in an elevator or whatever, like you had to have met a bunch of times to even cultivate that moment. So I don't know, you can take that however you want to take it, but I just feel like when the more you recognize the bloodlines, the more you can kind of see that everybody's just a surrogate for the bloodlines. And you can see that your own bloodline, and you can see other people. Like if you study the bloodlines, you can see like where the crossover points are, where people hybridized, or where people have a common ancestor, stuff like that. My shit's about to go off though, man. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. Yeah. The plasma is the breath which creates the blood. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. All the books, man. $60 for all the books. The midwifery book in there. Thank you.